A very good day to all my listeners all across the globe. Welcome back to my podcast, George Nathaniel, and this is George Nathaniel for each one of you. To begin with, I want to thank each one of you for listening to my podcast or visiting my blog site to read my blogs or listen to my podcast from my blog site, sharing such good and valuable feedbacks, and of course, time again coming in with your request on specific topics or subjects or experiences that you want me to talk about. Thank you so much, and I do look forward to a lot of support from you all in the future. Well, as you know, each of my podcasts comes with a specific topic or experience share. Today I have a nice topic. It's called Decide over the Decisive. Well, when I say decide over the decisive, what are we looking at? Well, let's get simple. Everyone starts from ground zero, irrespective of the same thing that each one of us has to do time and again. Progress is driven by the decision and precision to actually see how we do the small things and how we can take that small things to grow over time to become landmarks. So when I look at the topic for today, which is decide over the decisive, it's a very, very important topic for us, understanding that yes, every small thing is important for us at any point of time, and we should never take anything for granted. And what we need to understand that decision has no perfection. Decision has no time, it has no place, it has no given opportunity. It just needs to be taken at that very moment, or it can be taken whenever you're planning to decide or implement something. So coming back to my topic, decide over the decisive. Well, I must tell you that one needs to be determined by character of quality. When I say determined by character of quality, I mean mentally very strong, backed by clinical and crucial thinking with self-belief. And each one of us needs to understand that yes, whatever efforts we are putting in, or whatever action we are putting into efforts has the power to turn things around. So decide over the decisive is very, very important in every aspect of our life. It is not about making the right decision. It's about making the right decision with the right effort needed. And it's not about choice over decision. So when we make the right decision, we need to make sure that it is implemented correctly. It is implemented with all our efforts, irrespective whether it is something that keeps coming up time and again. And let me tell you, when you sit down and when you think, each one of us or everybody gets stuck on some kind of decision, be it small, big, whatever, at any point of time. These kind of decisions are sometimes small, sometimes very decisive, sometimes very stressful, but at the end of it, it has to be very decisive. So what are the things that you think we need to do to make sure that when we decide over such decisive decisions, we make the right choice, we make the right decisions? What are the characters or characteristics of a good decision making process? How do we implement effective decision making? What are the reliable ways? What are the methods that we use to adapt, to evaluate, to ensure that whatever we are deciding on is the best decision? And how we can determine results over our decision? Well, it takes a lot of things to combine together to decide over anything that is decisive. And when we look at it, we need to see a few things. What are the goods that we have? How we can better these goods, and how we can make sure that we implement all the goods over our action, over the results, or anything that we're looking at. And when I look at important methods to decide on decisive, well, I would say it's very, very important for us to understand the very basics of life. And the very basics of life is save on time. When it comes to any decision making or being decisive over any course of action, the first thing that we need to do is save on time. When I say save on time, I say take a few minutes to evaluate what is the goal, what are the results that can transpire out of our efforts, what is a decision that we're looking at, whether it's a quick, whether it's an important decision, and does this decision need to be taken in very wisely or in a strategic manner. Once we've taken those few precious moments, then when we put it to action, we will get results. Now, save on time means that if you're doing something, we might as well do it right. If you're doing something, we might as well give it our best. Because if you don't do it right, don't give it our best, somewhere down the line we will falter or we will fail. So that would lead us to coming back to 2-0 and starting on the same thing once again. So save on time is evaluating our goals. The next thing that we need to do is we need to have a growth mindset and a positive attitude. Look at everything with a solution. Look at everything as an opportunity. Look at everything as a growth and look at everything as a journey of life. So if you manifest a positive mindset, the outcome also finds its way in a positive way. And of course, when we have a positive mindset and when we manifest that into our action, that itself builds potential opportunities over whatever it is, whether it's a small deed, big deed, whatever decision we are taking over that point of time. Adapting to aid our leadership. So when I say adapting to aid our leadership, we need to have belief. We need to be self-inspired. We need to be confident. We need to be trusting our action over the course of time. So adapting to aid our leadership is about building our own values. We need to be in all calmness with acceptance to the results. Remember, the results may be bad, good, whatever. If we are calm with acceptance, that builds our concentration. That builds our priorities. That leads the way to make sure that whatever we are getting involved in gives us better results. So when we look at these important methods, how to decide on decisive, we need to understand that we need to balance our time, we need to balance our goal, we need to balance our success and our failures equally. And what we need to understand very clearly is no individual, no human being or nobody on this planet can have everything. So we need to understand our priorities. We need to understand what we can do, what is necessary, what is the need of the hour, and what are the priorities that we need to implement. So when I look at decide over the decisive, what are the better ways of deciding? We need to understand. And when we are building characteristics, what are the characteristics that we need to evaluate? So in all my podcasts, where I say look at your professional lives, your personal lives, or your goals, or your involvements all across life. And when I look at it or talk about it in terms of these subjects, how we can better ways of deciding? Well, we all want a better ways of deciding. So I would say a few things can be evaluated by individuals, or maybe a few things can be added more. And I would say to better ways of deciding would be coming out of our comfort zone. How do we manage to come out of our comfort zone when we are talking about taking a decision? Coming out of our comfort zone is primary. Next is getting into our area of focus and result bound. How do we come out of our comfort zone? How do we prepare ourselves in focus and of course in preparation? Then what we need to understand is how do we accept disappointment? How do we cope with disappointment? How do we cope with failures? And equally, how do we value successes? How do we cope with successes? The next thing that we need to do is understanding goal setting. So when we talk about decision making, being decisive, everything is goal bound. So when we decide on something, do we add a time frame to it? Do we have had any kind of an action process to it, or a thought process to it, or a strategic process to it? How did we cope it under pressure? How do we cope under pressure? What has been our worst scenario out of our expectations? So when we put these very basic things together, you don't need to have a million points. Just 4 or 5 points depending on your individual character. If you can determine your worth, determine your work, determine your goals, determine your action process, it makes it simpler for you to look beyond with betterment on a positive mindset. Your methods of approach and processes will be different. You will visualize things in a very different way. So it's very important for us to understand what are the best ways that we can implement on decision making. And coming back to key takeaways. Key takeaways are very important in all my podcasts. So when we say decision making, it's very important for us to understand time management. Time management as in there's a time and place for everything. If we know how to balance our professional lives, our personal lives, our involvement in lives, it makes it very simple for us. Communication. How do we communicate? It's equally important. So communication is a very important lesson or essence that we need to build. How do we adapt to learning? And how do we implement learning? How do we upskill our learning to find new avenues or to work towards new avenues? How do we stand out as an individual? How do we plan our goals? How do we place our goals? How do we work towards our goal? And most importantly, what we need to understand is when we make a decision, we need to be happy and stand by the decision that we make, no matter whatever the outcome. And what we should believe in is if we work hard, if we learn, adapt, practice, implement, whatever decision we make, it will definitely be worth it sooner or later in time. So the fear of challenge should be faced by the challenger himself and not by you. So it's very important to build a very strong attitude on decision making. You need to be very strong in self-belief. You need to understand that your effective decision making powers is guiding you through the right pathway where you can create success stories. So listeners, as you see, decide over the decisive is something that is very important in all our lives. So if we can sit down and evaluate how we can be better decision makers, how we can be logical decision makers, how we can be strategic decision makers, how we can be result driven decision makers, all these things can change our lives, change our lifestyles, change the results that we see in our lives. And definitely these will all be positive results, these will all be progressive results, and eventually it will be helping us, helping our involvement, helping everything that is around us, and building happiness and wellness all across. So like I say in all my podcasts, it's very important for us to come and share our experiences. It's very important for each one of us to come and help each other grow faster in life. So I hope you like listening to this podcast of mine, Decide Over the Decisive. As you know, my podcast is very simple, very generic, Because each one of us are different individuals. Each one of us have got different goals in life. Each one of us are under different situations or circumstances. Each one of us should create our own success story. So I wish each one of us, each one of you, all the best in all your life endeavors. Keep working hard, keep believing in yourself, and remember, you will be successful. Believe in what you're doing. Believe that yes, you will be the best version of yourself and you will achieve your goals in time. So here's wishing everyone all the best in everything that you're doing. I hope you like listening to my podcast, which is George Nathaniel. My podcast is available across all platforms, and I also have my blog website, which is called georgenathaniel.net. You can come and listen to my podcast, or you can read my blogs, which are totally different, and come back with your feedbacks if you want me to talk about or share any specific topic or experience that you would be happy to learn about that can help you in your personal life. So here's wishing everyone all the best, and I hope we start creating more success stories in everything that we do across life. Thank you so much. This is George Nathaniel, and I wish each one of you greater success in life. Thank you so much.